We begin today with news of fresh escalations between the U.S. and Iran. The U.S. State Department earlier today ordered the evacuation of all non-emergency personnel from American diplomatic facilities in Iraq. Now, the American embassy in Lebanon also issued a critical warning to staff, one step short of an evacuation. Now, comes as senior White House officials claim Iran is arming allied militia groups in Iraq and across the region. Houthi militias in Yemen allied with Iran as well, claimed responsibility yesterday for a drone attack on a key Saudi Arabian pipeline. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has now deployed an aircraft carrier group, nuclear-capable bombers, and troops to the region, citing unspecified security threats from Iran. Now, to break this all down, I am joined by former Pentagon official Michael Maloof. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
This is complicated, but it really isn't, because on the scale from nothing burger to DEFCON 1, how worrisome is it that the State Department is evacuating their staff from Iraq and even surrounding areas?
Well, there's some question, serious question about the intelligence itself. And that is what seems to be driving Bolton and Pompeo to take the actions that they are to create a sense of crisis at this point. There are no indications and warnings of an attack. There has been none expressed. And the deployment is really a redeployment of that carrier strike force back into the Gulf, and as a consequence, it's being hyped up here as being a new deployment when in fact it was not. It's just a replacement. So the indications and warnings are questionable, and we also have allies who are now openly questioning the intelligence, and that's pretty serious, which is bringing back memories of what happened in 2003 with that intelligence, which drove us to war. And that was in part driven by John Bolton, who seems to be still trying to do this, knowing that he's now in some kind of hot water with Trump. And I think he's trying to escalate or create a self-fulfilling prophecy of if you create enough of a crisis, you're going to get some reaction and therefore go to war. And that's not what the American people want. And that's not what Iran wants. And they've also expressed that.
Well, it's interesting because the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen did claim responsibility yesterday for the drone attack that temporarily disabled that Saudi oil pipeline. Is it reasonable, though, to assume they would not be doing this without some sort of a nod of approval from Iran? So could this be a warning shot back at our very aggressive moves to signal Iran is ready for a war?
I think it's hard to have a quid pro quo here of Yemen and Iran in this particular episode, because Yemen has its own war going on with the Saudis, and they've had it for quite some time, and they are capable of launching their own drones. They have a sophistication capability with these drones, so the linkage of the overall crisis is questionable, and that link has not yet been established. They have, as I said, they have their own issues. They've been at war, for almost 6, 7 years with the Saudis, and the Saudis can't seem to defeat them for some unknown reason, in spite of all of its hardware. Yet they have a capability. Now, there might have been some Iranian technical help over time, but they have an indigenous capability, not only with missiles, because they do have Scud-Cs from the old regimes, but they also have a technical capability.
Well, now, you mentioned earlier about our allies, and the Spanish government has actually pulled its Navy out of this U.S. carrier group. That, what you said was reassigned. It's basically just fulfilling something that they were told to do months ago. Right. We don't know exactly what this means or where this came about. We also know we're hearing some pushback from Great Britain as well. But doesn't this highlight the division right now that's happening between our allies, the European Union, and the U.S.?
Well, there seems to be that growing crescendo toward a disagreement that's coming out into the open now. And in fact, we have on Capitol Hill, they're calling for a briefing on that intelligence that's creating this, because there's some anxiety even on Capitol Hill toward it. And when the allies, when the number 2 person at Central Command, who was a Brit, said, look, we're in Iraq. Right. We don't see the activity that's generating this anxiety. It raises some very serious issues, and people need to remember 2003.
And let's bring up this Capitol Hill meeting that's been called for on the Hill. They're going to bring Congress back in and brief them on what exactly is going on, because is Congress getting ready to go to war, or more importantly, stop an administration from going to war? What do you feel?
I think they need to be briefed up. They need to know how ironclad the intelligence was. The fact that Trump declared as fake news.
Right, you're getting two different stories coming right now.
Yeah,
right.
We have a major conflict, and it really is showing a conflict between what John Bolton wants and what Trump, the president, wants in terms of how to conduct the relations with the Iranians. He even has talked about wanting to talk with the leadership there. And Bolton and Pompeo both levy all of these conditions that make it impossible.
But just to close up, do you feel like Bolton and Pompeo, though, are on the same page? I get a sense from Pompeo's press conference earlier this week with Putin that Pompeo might not necessarily be seeing eye to eye right now with Bolton in regards to Iran.
There are rumors that the two are having increasing disputes with one another over the gravity of the threat. And if Bolton says, well, we're having 120,000, looking at putting 120,000 troops in Iraq or wherever.
Does Iraq have to take those soldiers?
No.
That's the thing.
No.
That's another chapter.
And that's another problem that's going to be emerging, and they're going to fight it.
We could continue to have this conversation. I know we are, because this is going to continue to develop. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.